Hello there, I'm Tails from Studio Wildfire. I was about to say I'm Tails from Fantasy Grounds. No, I'm not. I'm Tails from Studio Wildfire, and I'm going to be doing some map building in Fantasy Grounds. I'm going to show you how I use the tools in Fantasy Grounds to build adventure maps using map tiles. So, let's start from the beginning. So I'm here at the Fantasy Grounds, what would you call this? The starting menu. But this is quite an important thing that I'm going to put out. Build your adventure maps, because your raw adventure maps are going to consist of a lot of bits and pieces, lots of stuff, lots of individual bits. And when you're running your actual game, you don't need to have so many bits and pieces. You basically just need to have the flattened image of your adventure map, the dynamic lighting data applied, and then bits that are going to be movable. Perhaps you want to put them in as separate little pieces, but you don't need the entire thing to consist of lots of layers and lots of folders and bits and pieces, which your raw build is going to consist of. So what I like to do is I like to create a new folder or a new campaign, and I usually call it build to show that I'm building something. And then if I'm just building maps, I'll just call it build maps. You can, for example, I'll do this in Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but you could do this in you could do this in Pathfinder, you could do it in Numeria, Fate, whatever system you enjoy. It's just you need to have a rule set applied in order to use the program. So since we're building maps, it doesn't really apply unless you're using like hex grids or some there's some weird mapping system that your rule set uses that might be good to have available. But I'm just going to use the Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I'm going to create a new campaign. It's called build-maps because I'm just building maps, and then I'm going to hit start. So it will create that campaign for me. It'll go through the loading screen where you get to have a drink. Pardon me. And you get to think about what you're going to build as the little dice rolls away down the bottom, which I don't think you can actually see on my screen. So yes, this is the boring bit. I should have fast forwarded through this, but it's important to know that building an adventure map, you're going to have lots of bits, as we will see. So we come over to. So one thing we're going to need is we're going to need an image. So we're going to need the images menu, and we're going to create a new one. So we right click, or actually hang on, I think it's there we go. It's this little add item now. It's changed a bit. And I have to emphasize, I usually do most of my map building in GIMP and Photoshop. So although like I do it in GIMP and Photoshop mainly because I use their tools. I put in fades and I draw squiggly bits and all sorts of stuff. But you can, as we're going to see, just build inside Fantasy Grounds. So let's just call this build. I'm going to call this mini castle. And let's just call it mini. So it's just a name. This is just a name so that we know what it is. Now, the next thing we're going to need our assets, which will come up as a little menu like this with folders. And we need the images. Now, what I like to do is I put this over here, this menu here, and then I increase its size to be that. So that way, we've got our assets folders here, and then we've got our map that we're going to be building on over here, because we're going to be predominantly, so if I go into, here's the catacombs map tiles, here is our sandstone floor, so here we can see our art assets. So what we're going to be doing pretty much for the entirety of this, for the 90% of the map build, is grabbing something from here and dragging it onto there. That's 90% of what we're going to be doing. All the rest is setting it up so it's easy to do that, and also for positioning. So let me just get rid of that tile. There we go. Okay, so we have our blank map canvas over here. We have our assets in the assets browser, so we can jump around between everything that we've got. Now, first thing we need to do is set up the actual map grid. Now, because I just dragged in an asset, it's probably taken the map grid from that asset. But if it's a different number, we'll need to set this now. So in the size section, so we're in this right-hand panel, we've clicked on the grid option, and we're setting, this is what our map grid is going to be. Now most D&D, Pathfinder, the whole works, they use a map grid which is 5 feet per grid square. So we want to set that, but we also want to set it to the pixels per map grid that I use in my map tiles, and we do this via this grid setting here. So a few little things to know about. The little eye at the beginning shows the map, turns it off or on, so you can either see it or not see it. Some people like building with it on, some people like building with it off. It's up to you. The next one is the grid type. So we've got you know, the standard square, or you could have the square tilted. Usually this ends up being an isometric view, where you unlock the aspect ratio, and you could make this say 100 by 200. Oops, or maybe I'm doing that around in the wrong way. So, pardon me. So this would be 200. This would be 100. Let's say. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. So there's an isometric grid for you, but and then there's hexagonal, which obviously is gonna look weird if it's 200 by 100. That would be 100. So there's a hexagonal grid, and then this is a hexagonal grid around the other way. But we want to use, because we're building a standard grid for you know, D&D or Pathfinder, we want to use the square. Tint is obviously the color of the grid, so we could make it green, we could make it blue, whatever. I generally I leave it as is, because I turn it off and on all the time. Now, size. This is important. I use, for all of my map tiles, I use a size of 180 square. So we just go 180, lock aspect ratio, there it is, we're done. If you've been zooming in or out like this, and to zoom in or out, I'll go through all the functionality. To zoom in or out is the middle mouse button, the wheel button on your mouse, which is the middle mouse button. You just scroll in and out, and you will zoom in and out on your picture. Now, the next items that you don't really need to do anything with is distance multiplier. That is, how big is each grid square? Here it should be set to 5. Distance suffix. Now that'll be a little I forget what the character's called, but it basically means feet. You could use it. You could type in something like, you know, FT or something like that if you really wanted to. Then there's show distance. which I never turn on. Don't know why. The adjust position is if you've got a map. Let's just say you've put down a large picture. I don't really have anything I can show you with, but if you've placed a large picture and you're trying to align this grid with a grid that's already on your map, or to align it to fit to your map, pressing on these little arrows will move the grid in that shape, in that direction, with the image itself staying in place. So it's a good way of, if you've got an odd size image with a grid already put on it, you can import it into Fantasy Grounds, set up your grid, and then use these buttons to make it match the positioning of the grid in your pre-existing image. But we don't need to do it with this, because all we need is the grid set to the right size, and we're building our map. Now, I'll get to navigation, how we navigate around our map. So obviously that's going to be with our mouse and a little pointer. So as I've said, scrolling in and out, zooming in and out, is with your middle mouse button, the wheel button. So you scroll in and out by scrolling that wheel. If you want to reset the view to 100%, you right click, you go down to view, and you go to reset zoom. And that'll bring you back to your basically 100% zoom. So that if I just place I'll just place a few tiles so you can see what I'm talking about. Here we go. So I'll just quickly throw these down. So zooming in and out. Now if you want to move, or if you want to reset the view, so let's just say we've zoomed way out and we're like, oh, I can't see crap. Right click, view, reset zoom, and that'll bring us back to 100%. Now, as you just saw there, I can move around my map. I can zoom in and out, but sometimes you like go, oh, there's a bit over here I want to see, and it's off the screen. Press down your middle mouse button, press down and hold, and it will drag. So it will allow you to move around your map as you're building. So between being able to move around, zooming in and out, and the ability to reset your zoom, you've pretty much got all the bits you need for managing your image. There are other pieces such as fill to zoom, sync client view. That's more of a in-game. Sometimes you need to sync the client view, the view between players and Dungeon Master. I've pretty much found I never use zoom to fit. I never use zoom to fill. Reset zoom is the one that if I'm right clicking and I need something, reset zoom's the one I'm looking for. But it's good to know that these are here, and they pretty much do exactly what the name says. So self-explanatory. So that's navigation. Now let's have a look at the all-important, and I'll just reset my view. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our art assets on the side here. Now these are what we're going to be making our map from. Now I'm currently looking at I've got a map tiles pack called Alien Hive. I'm looking at the Hive Floor, Hive Clusters from that pack. I'm probably not going to build in this because I'm going to build a fantasy map, but this is just to demonstrate. Now this is looking at the actual assets, and we want to drag these from here to here. Now how we do that is we want to be in the layers palette just here. We want to have layer selection, which is this little pencil icon just below it. Now that allows us to edit what we put on the screen, or what we put on our blank map canvas. And what we left click and hold on, we can drag around. So if I left click on this one, we can drag that around. This one, we can drag that around. And you'll notice that we're snapping to the grid. So we snap to, you know, we snap to half, or we snap inside the grid. And that is determined by having this little icon here, snap to grid. I'm sorry, snap grid. I'm sorry, grid snap. And this little icon here turned on. So if we turn that off, and notice as I drag around, it's not snapping to the grid. It's just going wherever it wants. If I turn on grid snap, it'll come back to snapping to the grid. And believe me, we want to have grid snap on. It is a lifesaver for map building, because everything will just plonk straight where we want it. You know, and it's easy. You just grab this piece and go, right, I want it there. Grab this piece. Oh, I actually want it over there. Fine. Pardon me. So, as you'll know, as you'll see, as you're going through map building and you're dragging in pieces from the assets window, every time you drag in a piece, it will create an element or a layer corresponding to that piece in the layers palette just down here. Right? Now, this will correspond to each piece that you place on your map. Now, there are a number of, you can basically, so you can move it around. You can, so there are some options. So for example, share with players. That visual option is really, it's not important in map building because when we're done at the very end of map building, we're going to turn all of these layers, pardon me, I'm trying not to burp in your ear. We're going to turn all of these layers into a flattened image. So this setting is unimportant for the moment, but it's good to know that it exists, because when you're running a game, you could have, say, a secret or something hidden from your players. So you would have it hidden by having that off. So it's now, as you can see, as I mouse over it, changes to GM only, which means only I can see this piece. My players would see, you know, if I just get this out of the road, they'd only see that. If I turn it on, look, they would then see this piece. But because we're map building, unimportant, because we're just building the map. It doesn't matter what, we're not concerned right now about what the players can see and cannot see. That'll be important later. Next item, visible. It is exactly as what it means. Is this piece visible? And it just means, visible means, like, this is purely an in-game importance. This is just overall, universal. Is it visible at all? So you could have the piece there, but then you could go, don't know if I really want to use it, but don't want to delete it, so I'll just make it not shown. So it's still there in the layers palette, but it's not shown. Last item is the lock item. Now, see how I turned on the lock, made everything red, or the selection for it red? That means I can't move it. I can't edit that piece now. Now, doing that is good when you've put in pieces and you want them to stay there, but you're afraid that as you're going around editing pieces, you don't want to accidentally pick up that piece and move it while you're trying to grab another piece. So putting on that little lock locks it in place. Now, that's individual layers. Now we need to manage our layers, and that is where folders come in. So if we have a look down the bottom here, there is an icon called Add Folder, and it does pretty much what it says. It pops in a folder. It'll be called folder, obvious. And it has the exact same options. So we could put all these items into that folder. So that's only put these 3 in. And the options for this work exactly the same for the individual layers, but for the entire folder. So if I decide to hit visual and hide that folder, it will hide all of the contents of that folder, as you can see. Same thing with the lock icon. If I lock that folder, it'll lock all the pieces that are inside it. So I can move the pieces that are not inside that locked folder. But if I try and move anything that's inside that locked folder, the selection will come up red and I'll not be able to do anything with it. Now, the next thing, let me just get rid of... Oh, and also, you'll notice that down the bottom of the panel, which might actually be off the screen to you guys, so let me just fix that up. Okay, so there we go. I'll do this with the assets panel as well. So you'll notice down the bottom of the panel, there's the add folder button, which was probably off screen when I was talking about it. There is a little trash can icon, and it's the delete selected option. So if I've got this folder selected and I hit that little trash can, bloop, there goes the folder and everything that was inside the folder. Same thing. So I select this layer, delete, deletes just that layer. Same thing with this one. If I have this layer selected, delete, deletes just that layer. So I'll just put a layer back on, some layers back on. There we go. These 2 pieces should be enough. If you've got the layer locked, can't delete it because it's locked. Whereas the other one, which I don't have locked, boop, gone. Now, so that's deleting layers. Oh, if you've got a layer, if you want to put layers into folders, so let me just create a quick folder. So there's a folder. All you do is you just select your layer, click and hold to pick it up, and then just drag it over the folder and let release, and it will drop it into that folder. So you can see this is now nested under that folder. There's a little button here which allows you to sort of collapse the folder, so you've just got the folder itself. You're not seeing everything that's in it, because sometimes, you know, as you're building, you'll end up with hundreds of layers in it, and you'll be like, oh, I want to find the thing that's at the bottom of the list. So you just hide the contents of that folder by clicking the little arrow to compress it. Okay, so let me just get rid of that. Drag out another piece. Now, you'll notice when you have a layer selected, it has these highlighted little boxes and a circle up the top here. These are manipulation handles. They're pretty simple. So if I click and drag, this bottom one stretches it. Same thing with side ones. Does a side stretch. I can also grab the corners and it draws it out like so. So it can be useful to change the dimensions of placed art assets. I don't recommend doing it with map tiles. You shouldn't need to change the dimensions of map tiles. They should be sized correctly so that all you need to do is just drag and drop. There are some elements that you may need to rotate. That can be done 2 ways. That's where this little handle up the top comes in. So you click and grab, and it starts to rotate it. Now, as you can see, it's rotating on 45-degree increments. That's rotating it by grabbing the little handle. You can also rotate it. If you have a look over here, there are a set of quick transforms. So there's the rotation. This is counterclockwise, clockwise. Sometimes you'll want to flip an asset. So for example, there's flip horizontal and there's flip vertical. If you're doing all sorts of things and you're like, oh, I want to get it back to how it originally was, reset. Just a little option right there. Just click that and it'll bring it back to the default state of this asset. But since we're using map tiles, we shouldn't need to modify them all that much. They should be just ready to go. All we need to do is just plonk them onto the map canvas. So let's get rid of that one. Now, that is the 90% of all of the bits and pieces you need for map building in GIMP using map tiles. You can build 90% of your maps using that. A lot of these options along the top here are important when you're doing other features. So for example, I'll just go through them now. Paint. It is quite literally you are painting. You'll see a painting layer will appear and you will be able to start painting. Again, if you're using map tiles, you shouldn't need to use the paint tool because the map tiles have it all for you. Next is the FX type. Now, this is a special effect. Now, special effects come into play, for example, if you want to create like a rain effect. You're not going to be able to see anything right at the moment because there's nothing on the canvas. These are effects that you use in a game. You don't use them while you're building your map. Line of sight is the next one. This is important. Once you've built your map, flattened it, and then imported it back into your actual game, you need to use this palette, the line of sight palette, to add in your walls, terrain features, doors, secret, toggleable walls, windows, and other bits and pieces. You use these tools to do that, but you use them way down the track. Lighting. Again, it's a feature that it allows you to create lights. You're not going to see anything right at the moment because, again, there's nothing on the map. I haven't made it. But it's good to know it exists. It creates, when you put in a light, it creates a little layer for it. Same as the special effects. It will create a layer for your special effects, which contains all that information. And again, to get rid of them, just delete out that layer. We'll come to adding in walls and whatnot. Sorry, the walls, this information for dynamic lighting, once we've actually finished creating the map. Same as lighting, so I'm just going to get rid of that light. And masking, exact same thing. I find I don't really need masking because, again, map tiles does most of the artwork for you. The grid, as per what we were talking about. Sometimes the last option here, which is a bit of a new one, I haven't actually played around with this one, is text. You can actually go and put in text. So let me just select this one. Now, I have to admit, I have not played with this feature yet. Again, I do most of my map building in tint. Let's change our tint. So, yep, we can change the color of the text. let's just make it blue. I like blue. Go okay. Size, where we can change the, let's just go 2. So 2 is really huge. Let's go 0.2. 0.2, it's getting smaller. So yeah, and then I can't remember what lighting does, and then what your actual text says. This sort of thing, you're going to use it for room names. And you can change the type of font. Experiment with it. I haven't really experimented with it because, as I said, I do the bulk of my map building in Photoshop and GIMP. I don't do a terrible amount of map building in Fantasy Grounds. I will import my maps from Photoshop, and then I'll do a lot of the line of sight, the special effects, and the lighting effects, because they're actually program driven in Fantasy Grounds. I won't actually do. I won't build lights. Well, depending. I do build lights in Photoshop, but it's best to actually do it with the dynamic lighting from the program itself. So let's get rid of that bit of text. Okay, so building, actual map building. Let's do that. That's what we're here for. Because, as I said, I'm covering the essentials for building in adventure maps in Fantasy Grounds. This is the core tools you'll need if you're building adventure maps with map tiles in Fantasy Grounds. So let's reset our view and find. So I'm going to use the dungeon map tool, dungeon map tiles. If I can find where I put it. Here it is, dungeon map tiles. That's the first one. Okay, so what are we going to build? Little mini castle. So let's start with some castle walls. So where are our castle walls? I can remember. It's been so long since I used the very first dungeon map tiles pack, which I know has castle walls in it. There we go. Stronghold walls. This is what I'm looking for. But it's been so long since I used this. I'm up to map tiles set 6 now. So it has progressed a little way, but I still like the castle walls from this set. So let us start with the castle gates, which should be this piece. Now you'll notice that this piece is actually a 1x2, and it's got a little bit of a perspective trick going on here with the door and the castle wall. So let's build our castle wall. So that's the doors. So we want. Here we go. So we're going to build a little, like a mini fort. Now the whole idea of, so this is our parapet, and this doorway actually goes under the wall. So let us grab and do this. So we might have it sort of, you go under here and come out here. So there's no doorway on this side, and there's just a door here. But it does mean that we need to put in some castle wall pieces on this side. So now we need to make it come back around. So how big are we going to have our sort of? So we're going to do like a very simple wall surrounding a small keep. So how big do we want to have our keep? So let's just make it 5x5 area. So that means that our little castle wall going around the outside needs to, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so we need another piece here. So I'll use that piece again. Right there. Now we need to come back around as a corner, which is these pieces. So just move over here, grab that piece, put it there. So you'll see this is a 2 by 2 piece. Now we want to do the same over the other side. There we go. So there's our castle walls coming around. Now we want to have a corner piece. Actually, one cool thing to do would be to make like little towers. And we'll do that by using our corners. Just like that. No, hang on. I could do this. So we're going to have little castle corners. If I can figure out how to do it. Now I need to have this piece come here. There we go. And then we'll have a piece here. Oops, come back. There we go. Have this jump to there. And am I doing this right? I think this is going to turn out bigger than what I thought it would be. Or am I doing this wrong? I mean, if I go to there... and then have a corner, go there, yeah, right there, which means this is going to come down to here, yep, and that's going to come to here. So we put I'm going to zoom out. Probably be a little bit bigger than what I was planning, but yeah, we get that. So we could have like a little... Oops, that's got a door in it. We don't want to have a door there. Like that. There we go. And then we just need to put some brick tiles in here, which I'll do that in a moment. But so if I do that on each side, that'll look pretty cool. And then we have like a little castle-y bit, or like a central tower in the middle. So let's put build this one. So we need to have this one. Put it, I think I had it there like that. Yep. And then we need a corner piece. It'll go right there. And then we need this one to go there. And another little corner piece there, which means this comes down to here. So we need this piece right there. See, this is why having the snap-on is really good. The pieces will just, like, as I put them in, because I'm zoomed right out. So as I'm putting them in, they're snapping into the position that I need them to go into. So when I zoom in, you know, everything's lined up. Now across here. Where are we? Here we are. So that one goes there. That one goes there. And that one goes there. Because as you can see, I'm just dragging and dropping. So that's our little castle wall starting to build up. So I need to find the little castle wall pieces here, which are these ones just here. And I'm doing 5 of them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just over the other side, so just here. So 1, 2, 3. They got doors in it, so 4 and 5. So we need to have a corner here and here, which is this one. That one goes right there, and then we need to have this one up the top here, over this side. Oop, oop. And then pieces to go in there, so we go back to here. There we go. There we go. Oop. So we don't want to have 2 pieces that are exactly the same next to each other. So let's just move them around, just like that. So we'll have a little 5x5 tower in here. We could put little towers on here if we really want to. We might actually do that. So we want to then make, like these pieces here, we want to put them over here. So we want to have this piece, and it needs to go there. And the same thing over the other side. Okay, some corners. And this side, there we are. Now when, it is rather important when map building, now you'll see how I've got the background for this map canvas, for this blank map, is black. Now, so this is a good time to actually think about where the blank pieces are showing in, because if we export this map out, which we will need to do when we want to import it into, you know, our actual campaign folder, we will need to convert it, or actually we need to remember that these black areas, if we were to export this map right now, these black areas would actually come up black, and you don't want that. So you need to fill in the whole map. So that's something to just bear in mind as you're map building, that you need to fill the whole thing in. But we're slowly getting there. So our castle walls are coming along. That piece goes there, and then oops. There we go. So that's that side. Go back to here, because this is where we need these pieces, so we can fill in. Yep, that's that along there. Then we need to do just in here. There we go. There's that section, and need to do the same thing just here. And as you can see, it is quite literally just drag and drop, drag and drop. So we need to fill in here, here, and along here. Where are we? Here we are. Whoops. Didn't mean to. Wanted to grab the asset, not the whole panel. So it's just quite literally drag and drop, drag and drop. And then just a little bit of alignment tweaking. Because sometimes you might drag it in the wrong spot and it'll end up half a tile in the wrong direction. Because if I drop it there, ooh, it's a tile out of place, so just drag it in. There we go. So I think that's our castle wall. We've got these little pieces to fill in. And we'll want to fill in some grass. So let's go and fill in the grass first. So I'm going back up, looking for my... where is it? Grass tiles. Here we are. So we zoom back in, or we can just reset, zoom back to 100%. So we need to have a little path and some grass. So we go looking for our grass tiles. Here they are. And it's just quite simply plonk, plonk. That's got a bit of dirt. There is a path. I'll go and find that in a minute. So we need a path coming from here. But, oops. Just sort of go through. Just filling it in. And you'll see why I fill in the whole map at the end of this, because if we don't fill it in, when we export it out, oops, if I go back up, when we export it out, as I was saying, the areas that don't have artwork will be black, and you don't want that when you're exporting out your map. You want it to be completely filled in. And a filled in map, it looks a lot better. Your players will enjoy it. Gives them plenty of space to explore. Oops, just go back up. So now, I didn't mean to grab that panel again. So this is the grass tiles that I'm using at the moment are the base level set grass tiles. They are 1 by 1. So that, as you can see with this one, they're all 1 by 1. 1 grid square map tile. In the Wilderness map tile set, this set has actually been expanded to have larger grass tiled areas, so that are for example 2 by 2 or 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 or 5 by 5. So you can quickly just go and fill in areas of an adventure map instead of doing what I'm doing at the moment, which is just because sometimes this can be a little laborious, going through and doing one tile at a time. You want to do that more when you're building your actual map, because then it gives you that granular control. But right at the moment, you don't necessarily need to have special artwork for the entire grassed area. So sometimes a quick, sometimes a quick tile, like, you know, I could quickly fill this with a 3x3 tile. I'm not going to do it this time because I'd have to go hunting around for where that map tile set is. Although, you know, probably wouldn't take me long. It's just, you know, I'm going through and doing it like this, which is getting us there. But it's, you know, it's par for the course. When you're building an adventure map, you're going to have the laborious parts where, you know, there's just a lot of tiles to plonk down because you're filling in, you know, like a big area. Not every adventure map is corridors and traps and whatnot. You've got to have sometimes the big open spaces to break up a map. We're almost getting there. Clump of dirt. So we're almost back around to the front of our castle. There we go. So that's our... Oh, try not to sneeze. So, okay, so now we need to find the path tiles that go here. Where are they? Where are they? Grass tiles. Footpath tiles. That's what I'm looking for. Here they are. So again, oops. I keep picking up the panel, not the asset. There we go. Okay. So, and this is a good time to show you. If you know, you click off the grid, you can look around and have a look at your map without the grid accessible or visual. The grid's still there, it's still doing its thing. You're just not showing it. Okay, so... Oh, this is actually a good time for me to talk about folders. Now that I've created a bajillion layers, see how lots and lots of layers? A good thing to do is to get into the habit of using folders to organize all of your different layers. Now, I have a basic group of folders that I like to use, so I'll just I will just pop them in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a folder which I call ground. It's where you put all of your ground elements. I have a folder that I call floor. It is where you put in all of your floor elements, obviously. Then walls, and then features. Now, the path tiles and the grass tiles. If I scroll to the bottom of the list where the grass, eventually I'll get there. This shows you how many tiles you can end up using. So I'm going to hold down Shift, select all of those, get back up to the top of the list. Oops. And then going to drag them all into my ground folder. So there we are. So I can hide them all. One click. They all exist in my ground folder. Now, the castle walls are going to be a little bit of an interesting thing. I want to keep them in a separate folder inside my ground folder. So I'm going to create a folder, call it Castle Walls. I'm then going to grab all the castle wall tiles, pop them inside the castle folder. I'm then going to grab the castle folder, pop it inside the ground folder. So if I have a look inside here, oops, you'll notice down the bottom there's the castle walls folder. What I might do is I might actually put all of the grass in this own folder as well. Let's call it grass. So this will be the grass and the path tiles. So grab all that, drag. Oops. Now this is a bit of a bug in Fantasy Grounds, or bug or feature, depending upon how you want to approach it. Sometimes it doesn't like if there's a folder sitting at the bottom of all of these tiles. Sometimes when you pick them up, like for example when I pick them up to drag them just then, all the folders will jump to the top of the list, which means it suddenly disappears from where it actually was. So sometimes what you need to do is grab the folder, if it was created at the bottom of the list, grab it, drag it to the top of the list, then grab all your stuff, drop it into the folder. It's just a little, it's not a, let's call it a feature. It's a feature of Fantasy Grounds. It's just a little quirk of the program that the folders will jump around if you're moving large amounts of layers. But when you know that it does that, it's not a problem. Okay, so I want to go and put some tiles here to fill in, these castle walls. So let's go to. We need our basic tiles, and here are our basic tiles. So let's just plonk them down. Now you'll notice, this is a good time for me to speak about this. You'll notice that whenever you put a tile, a new element on your map, it will come in at the top of the list. See how each of these tiles that I just placed have just appeared at the top of our list? Sometimes it can be a good idea to place a couple of tiles. So I'll go and fill in this spot. There we go. So place your tiles, then grab them, move them down so that all the folders jump back to the top, and then put them where you want them to go, into the folder that you want them inside. So I just picked them up, put them inside Castle Walls. Sometimes it can be a good idea to do that as you're building. So that's that section filled in. Let's do it to this one. Okay, we've got some different tiles here, so let's just, because we could see how we got a little trapdoor. We could put a trapdoor here. And then we could make the inside of this little castle wall. So we could have, like, if we do a little map, that's the inside of these castle walls. So we'd have a doorway here, that would come into, you know, the internal structure of this castle wall, and we can have a little, you know, walkway coming up to here. So I'll leave that there because I think that's pretty cool. But yep. So again, just, you know, select, pop them into my castle walls. Same thing over here. Oops, not that over there. There we go. So top one selected, hold down Shift, click on the last one to select them all, and then grab them and pop them into castle walls. So all of our castle walls is inside that folder. So it's easy to work on. Oops. I keep grabbing that. Oops. So I want that there. So there we go. Again, click, drag into castle walls. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my castle walls. I'm going to lock my grass so that way I don't accidentally, as I continue to add pieces to my map, I don't accidentally drag them around. I don't, you know, now that they're in place, I want them to stay there. So I'm going to put a little building here. So let's have a look. How can we put a building there? Now, from memory, I had a folder of outer walls, which I think is this one. Yep, here we go. Now, I think if I use this though, it's going to create this castle. This little building is going to have grass. So if I go plonk one down so you can see. It's going to have yeah. It's actually going to make it a very, very tiny little building, which is no problem. It'll be the world's smallest castle. So, because it has a little edge to it, which is fine. You know, you're gonna have small castles. Small castles are good. Well, it's actually not a castle, it's a keep. So we want to have, whoops, keep grabbing the panel instead of what I'm actually trying to grab. So I'm just popping down. So I've got a doorway, and now I'm just putting in some tiles. That will be the edge of the wall. So I'm not going to have windows down on this level. The whole idea of a castle is that on the ground floor you've got a door and that's it. You know, you've got one vulnerability. Oops. Okay. So we're coming round, so we need stop grabbing the whole panel. Just grab the art asset, not the panel. There we go. Oops. So we can see that this has got like an interesting little sort of, got like a dirt edge to the building with some flowers. Need to put a corner up there. Let's have a look. Oh, we could have put like a little round tower in somewhere, but we're not going to. these are all the different sorts of assets you get. Like this one has a bit of wall. It's a 2x2, bit of wall, bit of outside dirt, and a window. If you didn't know, just double clicking on an asset will bring up this preview window, so you can have a look at what the asset is. Okay, so we want this one to go up there, and this one to go here. So that is our ground floor. So it's a teeny tiny little keep. So it's a big castle. Well, it's not really a big castle wall. This would actually be tiny compared to most castles. So it's and a teeny tiny little keep in the middle. So let's assume that this is going to have another floor. So if we're building the inside, let's have a look. Oops, I think I just went out of the whole thing, so I've got to go find my dungeon map tiles. There we are. So we need our walls. Where are we? Door overlays, doorways. So probably need a doorway. So we'll need to have this one. Come in here. So we'll have a staircase up the back of this room going to the next level. So we'll probably just make this one big room. Yeah, we'll make this one big room. Or let's think about this. So let's put these into our walls folder, because these are now our walls. There we go. Technically it's walls and ground, so maybe we should put it in our ground, but I'm going to be putting them into the walls folder for now, just for this example. But how are we going to? Maybe we could have, if I think about this for a moment, how could we do? What I might actually do is I'll just put down some tile. I'll put down a floor. So these will go into our floor tiles. Whoops. I think I need to grab the art asset from the center of the art asset. I seem to be grabbing it from the side too many times. But anyway, so if we grab these, put them in our walls, our floor, because this is actually our floor now. So that's our floor. Now we're going to put in some walls. So we need to have some wall overlays. Where are we? Door overlays. No, that's the actual doors. Wall overlays. That's what we want. Because originally when I made this shows how long ago I made this set. Originally, the walls and floors used to be combined, as you can see here. So let me just zoom in on this. You can see that the wall and the wall shadow and the floor are one combined piece of artwork. That was how I originally started making map tiles. Then came along PNG images. And the cool thing about PNG images is it allows you to have an alpha channel or a transparency channel, which allows you to do things such as this. So if I zoom in on this, this is a corridor tile. So we've got the walls, the wall shadow, but we don't have the floor artwork combined as this, which means we can add this onto our map, and we see the floor through the shadowing, which made great flexibility for map tiles. It means that you could use, say, the dungeon map tiles set. You could use the floor, but then you could use the walls from, say, dungeon map tile 6 and have a different texture and mix and match, which makes everything look a lot more different, a lot more full of character. But let's get rid of that, because what we want to do is we just want to put in, here we go, so we'll make a room just here. It's a little 2x2 room. We'll have a staircase here, going up to the next level, question mark. So we have, so we use this like that. We then have to put a doorway here. So we'll have a wall section here. Like that. Now we need to find our cornerstones, which I believe, yep, here they are. So we need to have a cornerstone up in that corner to cap off that wall. And then this will come around. So we want to have another cornerstone, which will cap off right there. Then we want to have another wall corner right there like that. Now we're going to need another one over here to do that. But we are going to need a dead end just here, because we'll make a staircase. So if I just grab so the passageway piece that I was showing you just before. So I'm going to use one here. That caps off that passageway. And one here. Whoops, wrong one. I want a passageway going this way. So this one here, like that. Now I need a cornerstone to cap that off. Now I need a dead end right here. So where are our dead ends? They are at the beginning? Question mark? Beginning? Where are you? Dead ends, hello. Did I put them in a different folder? I probably have. Dead ends. Here we go. That's what we want. So we want a dead end. Plunk, right there. Now, we put these into our walls vulture, like that. Now, we're going to want a staircase. So we'll go a couple of steps here, couple of steps here, because technically when you get up to this level or this point, this is going to be a second floor. Oops, one thing I have forgotten is a little end cap here. Let's go and grab that. Wall overlays, and that one right there, and put it in the folder. There we go. Okay, now let's go and find some steps. And we should have a folder called steps. I think it's called steps. Let's do a word search for step. There we go. We want. So this is searching through the entire folder. So it's found anything that has the word step. These are what we're looking for. Now, here's the interesting thing. We don't want them put in the walls folder. We want them put in the floor folder. So I'm just going to lock off these folders and the features folder so that we only edit the floor folder. We want them to go in here. And we need them to be above the tiles we've already placed. So let's grab this one. We want to put him there. So we grab it, put him into our floor folder. Oops, but he's jump down the bottom. We want him at the top. So you just drag and drop to reposition. And then the same thing for this guy. We want him there. We want him there. So there we go. We have some steps. So you come around here, up these steps, up to here. Now, one last little feature, because I like putting in, when I'm going up levels, let's get rid of our search. So one thing I've started adding into a lot of sets are black and white fades, because I use them to show that you're going up and down levels. Now I've got to find the right one. Is this going to do it? No, I don't think that's going to do it, because usually I make the fades. So for example, if we use this one, it's made for a big staircase, which is not what we want. But this one, it's made for a little staircase, not really what we want either. So we're going to just use one of these. So I think that's, nope, too big, oh sorry, too long. This one is probably what we want. And we want it to fade here. So I'm going to turn it and then position it right there. So it shows, so if I turn off the grid, so it shows that you're going up a level. But again, you know, I might actually, I'm not liking how the fade's actually looking. So I might actually do this in an art program. So let's just get rid of that. But this is our adventure map with a little building. So this is level 1. So we'd actually go and build another level. But this is our map that we want to use. Now, ooh, that's not looking too good. I wonder why that's happening. Anyway, we'll have to have a look at that later. You want to use, if you want to use this map in your adventure, don't use this raw build. I've said this at the beginning, and I'm going to re-emphasize it now. You don't need to have all of this. Like if you look at it, you look at all the bits that I've got in it. So, you know, there's the grass. You don't need to have all these random bits just sitting in the layers folder. What you want to do, so if we go to view, reset zoom, okay, we want to come down here to the bottom to export image file, and we want to click on that button, and it will come up with a file browser. So I'm just going to put this on my desktop. I'm just going to call, and it's going to be called, so what have we named it here? It will be called here. So in this case, it's build mini castle, save. And it will have exported out this image. Now, because I went and filled this entire image with artwork, there'll be no black bits. So for example, if I go and hide, I'll see what happens. So if I hide the castle, so that folder, and I exported an image now, so we'll just call it, go back to our desktop, I'm going to call it mini castle 2. So if I go and find those images, oops, where's my file browser? Oh, it's over here on the other window. So if I go to my desktop, oops, I think I'm opening in Photoshop. Yep. Oh no, it opened in this Photos program. Okay, so this is the image that I exported out first. So as you can see, it's got all the artwork. It's all filled with artwork. But if we have a look at the second one where I hid parts, let me just... see how the parts that I hid, or the parts that had parts of the image or the map that had no artwork in it, it actually comes up black. That's not optimum. We want to have this image, we want to have the entire thing filled full of artwork. So now what we're going to do is we're going to re-import this back into our campaign. Now I'm actually going to import it into, oops, let's go and unhide our castle walls, put them back, and reduce all of our folders. There we go. So that's our raw image, and we want to keep that because we want, let's just say later on part of this castle wall gets broken through or something right like that. We want to edit the map later on, so we want to keep this. And here it is. That's our image. But let's just say we would close down a map build, and then we would open up our actual campaign. Then, if I just go back to, if I go to my campaign folder, actually, that's what I'll do. Just bear with us a second. Okay, so here we are. So here is my Fantasy Grounds campaigns folder. So if you're looking for it, if you go to your Fantasy Grounds Unity data folder, then into your campaigns folder, you'll see whatever campaigns that you're currently working on. So I'm going to use the build maps campaign for the moment, because that's what I'm doing my experimentation in. Now, in your campaigns folder, you'll have a folder called images. That's where you keep all of your images. So if I go and find, let me just create another browser window. So if I go and find the image I just made, which is on the desktop, and copy it, or actually move it in this case, into our images folder inside our campaign. That will make it accessible to our campaign. So let's get rid of the file browsers, come back to our campaign. Now, what we're looking for in our assets panel, and you may need to click this little button down the bottom called Refresh Folder Assets. So click that. You should see a folder pop up called Campaign. That is your campaign's images folder. So you go in there, and there's the image that we just made. So you can double click it, have a look at it. Nice, interesting. Now, what we want to do is we want to turn it into an adventure map. So, what did I just do? I just grabbed it, dragged it down in here. Now, unfortunately, that's going to put it inside. Oh, no, actually, it hasn't. What I need to do is I need to create a... Sorry, it's been a while since I did this. I need to create a new item. So, a blank map. Now, don't call it build. Build-mini castle. This is where you get to use the actual name. So, mini castle. Oop. Okay. Now, drag and drop it in. There is your adventure map. Again, you will need to set your grid. So this is 150. Oh, sorry, 180. 180. Now this is where these little arrows become important. Because as you can see, because I just dragged and dropped this in, the grid is not lining up correctly. So what you can do, there's two things you can do. You can just click these little arrows to nudge the grid around. Right, you can do that. Or you just, because we built this using map tiles, and every map tile is 180 pixels, and we've set our grid size to 180, we can just grab our map, oops, oh, so you'll have to go back to layers. We can just grab our map and we can just position it, because it will snap to the grid. We can just, whoop, there we go. So we don't need to adjust this. We can just, in layers, layer selection, grab this layer and move it into position. And it's done. The grid is set. It's the correct size. Everything we need is done. It's, everything is aligned. So from here, in order to get this map ready for use with our players, we need to go and add some dynamic lighting, because this is our play map, where we're not going to, if I just minimize this, okay, and I minimized, if you didn't know, these little options up the top here, so that's close, increase size, minimize, so it makes it into a little icon like this that's on your desktop, so you can move it around, double click it, brings the image back up. At this point, well, actually I'll just go back to what I was saying. So we've got our build mini castle. Technically, if we were in our campaign, this wouldn't be in here. You wouldn't have you wouldn't have the build mini castle in your campaign. There's no need to have it in here, because that's your raw build. This one, which is what we're going to use now, which is the exported version of mini castle, this is what we're going to add all of our dynamic lighting to, because we don't need to work on the build, because it's got all the different pieces, which I can't click on at the moment because they're locked. But this is just basically a flat image. It's going to be a lot less memory and energy drain and bandwidth drain on your players' computers and your computer. So that's why we export it out as a flattened image. So I'm just going to get rid of the assets and this panel. So, because all we need at this point to get it ready for play is this map. And what we're going to be doing is adding in dynamic lighting. And we're going to be adding in where the dynamic lighting would stop because of our walls. Okay, so this map is going to use two forms of barrier which are going to stop the lighting. Now, the most common one you're going to use is going to be, if we go to our line of sight, click on the little pencil tool, and these little type options here, the most common one you're going to use is going to be walls, followed by windows, followed by doors. They're going to be, again, 80 to 90% of your adventure maps are going to use those. And we'll go through how to pop them down. So the first one I'm going to start with is walls. Now, you've got a number of options up here for how to draw your walls. And there are, so for example, if I click on rectangle, there are some options here. So snap to grid, there's point snap, which I recommend putting on. There are actions here which I never remember to use them, and I never remember what the actual what they actually do. So we'll experiment with them now. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. So what it does is actually draws out a rectangular line system, which is our this is what prevents lighting. So if we had a light on this side, this would cast shadows because it would be stopped by this red rectangle. So effectively what you would do is you would go and put, so if I just quickly do this, you would go and put, you know, like this, these wall sections in like this, and these would be what is stopping the dynamic lighting. So if you had a light here, which I'll put in a moment, these are what stops the light going through. These are the walls. So let me just get, now to remove them or to edit them, again, have the little pencil up here selected, which means you can then grab each of these little corner pieces and you can move them around. Or you could delete them, you know, select, delete, and as you can see, the polygon changes as you delete the items. So again, so I'm just drag and dropping, selecting that whole thing, getting rid of it, gone. Now, it's been a while since I used this system, and I had a technique a while ago for doing it, and I'm going to see if I can remember it. So if you want to, let's see if I remember how to do this. Okay, so let's do like that. Or actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get rid of the lot, and I'm going to experiment. Because what I want to do is I want to draw out a square or rectangle, and then I want to have the intersection combine. So that doesn't do it. So it's one of these. I think it's, is it that one? There was an option that does it. Trim interior includers. That might be what that's sort of what I'm thinking of. Because I wanted to be able to just, yeah, do stuff like that. Okay, so let's just see if I do this. Go away. I don't want you here. Delete. No, it's not working for me. It doesn't like my keyboard. I have a little mini cut down keyboard. Let's just get rid of those. Go away. Go away. Why does it not like? Okay, there's an easy way to do this. Let's just get rid of the whole thing. Oh, that's not working the way I wanted. One of the problems of having a cut down keyboard because you use a Wacom tablet. Bugger. Come on. There we go. It's starting to sort of do what I want. Let's just start again. Okay, where's my assets? Campaign. Drag it onto here. Let's then move it. There we go. Okay, so let's go back down here. Get rid of that. Well, it's good to show that, you know, when you have everyone has problems with these things. when they don't do it for ages. So let's just... okay. Let's just use the line tool and just draw this out. The line tool is just quite simply placing dots. Dot there, dot there. You can use middle mouse button, press down, hold, and move. There we go. There was a way to do it where you could just draw out the square, like the rectangular sections. There we go. Now, sometimes you do need to sort of check that things are is going on. I've got point snap on. They should be going together. There we go. That's what it should have been doing. There we go. Okay, so after that, okay, so there is our walls. After so much toing and froing. Now, there is another type of wall, which is sort of like it's like an upper level wall. I think it's quite simply just the terrain wall, because we want to have a system. So this is going to block line of sight for people who are inside this structure, but we want to have line of sight blocked by the castle wall. So if a person's here, they're not going to see here. But if a person's here, they're going to be able to see here and here. And I'm pretty certain that is the terrain wall, which we will try now. Let's see how badly I can muff this up. So I'm going to turn on grid snap. So let's go start here. Oops, I'm going to use the draw line. I'm going to avoid the rectangle for the moment because it's not been doing what I thought it would do. So let's just draw out, and as you can see, it's creating a polygon, which is what I thought the line tool would originally do when I started creating the walls for the inner building, but it didn't. But the whole idea of this is that it's outlining an area so there we go. So it's outlining, you know, you have to be up on this. So hopefully if I do this, it'll think the same thing. There we go. So we'll test this when I actually go and put in some lighting. Yes, this is the one bit that I never remember how to do with Fantasy Grounds, is how to do the dynamic lighting. Whoops. I want to turn off grid snap because I want to have, this is where a door would go, so I want to give it a bit of space. But I don't want it to chop out. I want to do that. Okay. Now from memory, yep, have that do that. This should jump over there. Good, good, good. So I want that there. Oops. There we go. So that's sort of lining up the way it should. So that should be a doorway, because there are no windows. That should be all the dynamic lighting. I think they're called includers, the lines. But let's add in some lights. Now, I'm going to assume that we're going to have a light in here. So let's use a preset. Let's go for a lamp. Let's assume that there's a lamp hanging from the ceiling, and it's going to go... Whoops, let's just grab lamp, and it's going to go right there. Now, this is where we need to come back to the settings, overall settings of the map, which is this little option here called play. These are sort of like the settings that you'll mainly use when you're actually playing on the map. But we want to enable line of sight, and we want to enable our light. And now it's doing something weird. This is what I thought it would do. It's because we want to have this intersect this. Let's have a look. How can we do that? Because this should be an area within. I may have to look up some YouTube videos on how to do this, because I don't remember how to do it. Because we want to have this area, this entire area in green as one piece, and with this as an area within it, and this is an area outside it. But as you can see, our light is working the way it should. It is illuminating this area here, and it's getting chopped off by this wall here. Whereas if I pick up this light and I move it outside, you can see these walls are blocking it. Well, this is not really doing what it should be doing. Like that's actually quite correct, but you would think that if it was down here, it would be blocking this. Now, I'm not certain whether that's the simplicity of the dynamic lighting that we've got in Fantasy Grounds, or whether I've set it up wrong. It could be that I've set it up wrong. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate. Down the bottom of the options here is a duplicate button. So we'll duplicate, which should, yep, there's a second light, and I want it at the top of the stairs to show that there's another, there's another light up there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate again and put a light. So there's a torch on the top of each of these parapet sections. So just duplicate, move it around, duplicate, move it around. But effectively, that is building adventure maps in Fantasy Grounds with map tiles. It's just showing how badly I understand how the dynamic lighting works in Fantasy Grounds. But essentially, that's everything you need to know. I hope you had fun watching. I hope this was an educational video. It was for me. But I will catch you next Monday with another build, and have fun.